Hi guys, how are you doing tonight?
Great.
Great. How are you?
Good, thanks for joining me for this speech. Most of us are aware of the first ever trip to the moon. We know that Neil Armstrong was the first person to step foot on the moon, and it was done in 1969. These are the things that we do know. When you think about the first trip to the moon in 1969, you probably assume that the technology was very, very advanced in order to successfully get him from Earth all the way to the moon. Today I am going to talk to you guys about the fact that there is a lot that is unknown about this mission, and that the technology is not everything that you might expect it to have been. I have always studied astronomy, and this was one of the most interesting missions that I have ever studied. I also have taken astronomy classes in which we have discussed Apollo 11. Let's start off by talking about the mission itself and how it was brought about. Apollo 11 was the USA's way of making a giant step in the Cold War between us and the Soviet Union of Russia. It was the first manned mission to ever land on the moon, with the first steps being taken by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on July 20th, 1969. As I stated earlier, these might be some of the facts that you already know about Apollo 11, but it was much more complex than just that. Apollo 11 was launched from Cape Kennedy at 1332 on July 20th, 1969. Once Apollo 11 launched, it took approximately 3 full days to reach the moon, almost making it 4 days. The moon is about 225,600 miles from Earth's surface, which makes the trip of less than 4 days in 1969 truly remarkable. It is said that in 2016, due to technological advances, that we could get to the moon in as little as 2 days. When you think about how long it took them to get to the moon, you have to wonder what they did when they arrived and how long they stayed. Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin spent 21 hours on the moon. Immediately after Armstrong and Aldrin landed, they released the modularized equipment stowage assembly on which the camera was stowed, and the camera recorded humankind's first step on the moon, which are the famous videos and pictures that we currently see today. Also, a sample of lunar surface material was collected, so that if a contingency required an early end to the planned surface activities, samples of lunar surface material could be returned to Earth for study. The Apollo 11 mission was one that will forever go down in history as one of the most significant space travel missions of all time. And it is important that you grasp all the facts you can about the actions that actually took place. In conclusion, I am very glad that I was able to speak to you guys about the actions that actually took place on the first ever manned trip to the moon. Neil Armstrong is the name that gets the most recognition from the trip, but there were many others who were responsible for making it possible, and I want everyone to try to remember that. The most important thing to remember from this is that a lot was put into this mission, and that a lot could have gone terribly wrong, but the USA successfully got it done and effectively got ahead in the Cold War. Please realize that Neil Armstrong was in fact very important in this mission, but be sure to give everyone involved in the mission credit, especially Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins. As Americans, we were taught in grade school that Apollo 11 was done to get ahead in the Cold War, and that Neil Armstrong was the first man to ever walk on the moon. I want you to take away from this speech that there was a lot more involved in the mission than what you are taught. Do you guys have any questions? Do you guys have any questions for me?
How do you feel about the conspiracy theory regarding Apollo 11 and its mission?
I don't believe there's much truth to it from all the research that I've done. So that's how I feel. Any more questions? No? Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.